All right, all right, all right. Welcome into another episode of Hockey Royalty Live, the official podcast of hockeyroyalty.com. We're going to be talking game 3. We're going to be talking game 4 and what it looks like with 3 games to go in the series. Like and subscribe. Let's get into the chat. Let's go. All right, fellas. Well, it's been a couple days since we've been on here. I know we were trying to go every day, but just from all the stress from the winning and whatever, we just needed a weekend off. We're coming strong today with both games and seeing what's going on in the future. But before we get into all that, how are you fellas doing? I know Russell, you had a jam-packed weekend with some games, some stuff with the fam. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. It's weird because I really wish I didn't have like a dog in this fight between the Kings and Oilers, because objectively, this has been by far one of the best playoff series I've seen in probably a few years. I mean, I'm getting Chicago 2014 vibes between the Kings and the Western Conference Finals. I mean, 3 overtimes. The other one was essentially a 1-goal game with the empty netter. But mentally, pretty stressed out right now. But otherwise, I'm doing pretty good. How you doing, Joe?
I'm all right. Yeah, you could say it's as advertised, right? I mean, it's been a hell of a freaking series. That game last night was fantastic. But looking around the other series, it's still early. Although the Devils, we talking briefly here before we hopped on here, Russ. The Devils have tied that series up, but I don't think the games are quite as exciting as what we're seeing. I got feisty Boston, Florida the other day. Toronto and Tampa had a melee. But as a whole, I agree. It's been an entertaining series. It's no short of excitement for the average fan, and probably everybody's losing a little bit of sleep and a lot of hair if you're a fan of either of these teams.
Yeah, Joe had a full head of hair before the series started.
Well, let's get in the chat here. CJ coming in early, man. 6:08 p.m. I like it. Good evening, gentlemen. Nav21. Hey, yo, Sean P. Hey, guys. We shall overcome. Dimitri coming in here, say fourth line is a major liability. We'll get into that into the previews. Maybe a little in game 4 right there. But let's start first with game 3. Obviously, this was a major controversial game, not only with the final goal and the Velarde high stick, but there were some penalties there. I mean, you look at the slashing against Draisaitl after the goal. A lot of people thought that it was soft, even though it was directly to the side of the leg. You look at some ticky-tack here and there, especially from Edmonton's side. A lot of complaining by the coach post-game. But the overtime heroics, Kings pull it out, go up 2-1 in the series. Overall, what did you think about the return of Gabe Velarde and then the team as a whole?
Yeah, Gabe's made an impact since he's come back in the lineup. I mean, ever since game 2. He hasn't really missed a beat, which has been very good to see. I mean, we talked about this before game 1, after game 1. He's definitely one of the more high-skilled players on the team, so to have him back was great. But game 3 was pretty much – officiating's kind of had this dark cloud over this entire series, and it's unfortunate because, the Kings – have been getting some soft calls. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is what it is. But this is just the way that playoffs are. The refs are always going to have their impact on a game. It's just about how you overcome it as a team. And you could say the Kings benefited from it. I mean, the high stick, it is what it is. I mean, at the time, I was just like, if you're trying to slow down frame by frame, and then for a play that didn't even really have a huge impact on the goal itself, it was probably like 10 seconds before the puck even went in the net. So, I mean, it felt right that the goals like that should count. Like, that's not what the rule is for. I forget who had that article come out, Down Goes Brown. I don't know his real name on from The Athletic, but it's like the replay review has become this like thing that people just kind of look to kind of save them, as opposed to making sure that the play and the actual hockey is being played on the ice. So I'm glad that they let the call go because it was a nice play. I mean, Byfield, Velarde, Trevor Moore, like excellent, like forecheck cycle all throughout the corner, and it was really once again a really entertaining game.
Yeah, I mean, just real quick on the goal. I had no idea that was even a reviewable thing. I didn't even know they could go back and I mean, I knew they could go back for if they thought there was a goal. I did not know that there was a
well, Joe, real quick, and also we had no idea what was going on in the arena.
I bet
there were fans in front of me looking back up, like what's going on, and I didn't know until I saw a close up on the replay of like maybe a stick touching high, and I was like, okay, maybe that's what they're reviewing, because I remember that Sharks game, I think it was a hand pass, and that's where the replay review was implemented into the system. So I was actually kind of worried that they were going to call it back, just judging, but I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, I mean I think the Kings caught a break. I mean, I agree that it's in the spirit of the rule. I mean, it's kind of crazy that they're going back and doing that. So I'm obviously glad for that reason, and because I want the Kings to win the series, that it stood. I mean, I thought it hit the tape. I thought it hit a stick, but it really wasn't that conclusive, at least for me. I don't know if they had a different view. Obviously they didn't, and they kept the call on the ice. I mean, so it is what it is. I think the Kings, again, maybe they caught a break on that, but it was a back and forth game kind of early, and I don't know. I thought that after the first period, there was a handful of penalties in the first period. And I wrote the article that I think it was the next day, just incredibly stupid from Edmonton. Edmonton could conceivably have been up 3-0 in this series after 3 games, but they're incredibly stupid penalties. They're just undisciplined. It was shocking how they were just continuing to shoot themselves in the foot. They just take the lead. And Randon, you mentioned about is the slash on Draisaitl after the goal a soft call? Yeah, it's a little ticky tacky. There wasn't that much there.
But there wouldn't have been a call if you don't do anything.
But what are you doing? Is my point. And Draisaitl had the audacity. I think it was after game 1. Draisaitl had said, we got to be more mature. We got to be smarter about taking these late penalties. Because again, mind you, the Kings were down by a goal in that final minute in game 1, and they had a power play goal, which was a 6-on-4, and then a power play goal in overtime because of absolutely careless penalties by Edmonton. And they did it again in game 3 with the Draisaitl thing. Just stupid. It was like I wrote in the article, like it's disappointing as a hockey fan to see a team that talented do that. And they did it again yesterday. So the Kings took the 4-3 lead. The Zach Hyman penalty was mind-numbingly stupid. Mikey Anderson dumps the puck in, and you take a 2-hand chop at his foot to take him down. The Kings could have scored on the power play, took a 2-goal lead. Like these guys, if they do get by LA, yeah, they're the best team in the West, but good God, they're asking for trouble. They're just a stupid hockey team. It's incredible to me. But that said, game 3 I didn't think LA played a great game after the first period. It's kind of been the same way that was the first couple of games. Edmonton has controlled this series through the first 3 games at 5-on-5, and it wasn't even particularly close. I think LA had done a decent job, relatively speaking, of limiting some of what Edmonton could do. I mean, they'd kept McDavid off the sheet for a while. Even with limiting, you see the broadcast talk about some of the more private analytics that look good in the Kings' favor, but it's like even with that, they're still getting dominated at 5-on-5, and it's just like, so they're like kind of hanging on, but they had the 2-1 series lead. They credit to them. Like you can be handed gifts all you want, presents all you want, you still got to open them, and so they take advantage of some of the gifts that they were given, whether it was penalties or whatever it was on the high stick in overtime in game 3. So they get through 3 games. They're up 2-1. Rando, you asked about Velarde, huge impact to the series. He's him, and then we'll get to Fiala, I know, but that's huge. I mean, it just adds so much to that bottom 6 that's sorely needed. So it was a good result in game 3, but like game 1, not a great performance. But you're up 2-1 after 3.
I think we've been doing a decent job at counterpunching, which is I thought we have needed to do, because we talked about this in the preview, or at least I did. I expected, not obviously not knowing how long the injuries would be to Velarde and Fiala, that we would probably get hemmed in quite a bit, and that we'd have to be good counterpunchers, and we have to not take stupid penalties to stay out of the box. And for the most part, in the first 3 games, we did that. We counterpunched, we stayed out of the box, and in game 2 got absolutely destroyed, and we still were in a fighting chance in that game. So I thought we'd done a pretty good job, going into that. And the penalty there, I mean, it's inconclusive. It is what it is. Like, you're not going to make the play as a referee and say, yeah, that's for sure hitting the tape, when I couldn't tell. Like, was that puck's already at its apex? It didn't stop moving. Our photographer, Alex Cave, said on a compression lens on all those cameras, you can't tell layering. You can't tell that puck could be, a millimeter away, or it could be 5 inches away. You can't really tell. And so and like you said, Russ, it wasn't really a part of the play, because even after that, it's not like it went straight to Velarde and he made a dish, right? So, it was bouncing around there. He didn't even hit it directly after that. It was all moving around. So it is what it is. I know. I mean, obviously, if the shoe was on the other foot, maybe Kings fans would be upset and everything like that, just because there's a lot of energy going into this game. And, Fiala's trip in game 4, people were upset about that, and the stick was in between Draisaitl's legs, right? So it's just, it's part of the game. Fans are always going to complain and think that it has way more impact than what it does on the game. But ultimately, I think the Kings, outside of a few things in game 4, have been doing a good job at limiting the amount of mistakes, limiting the amount of opportunities that Edmonton is having on the power play. Because, we thought they were dominant during the regular season. They've just been destroying us nonstop on the power play. So, as much as we've, quote unquote, taken McDavid off the sheet, Draisaitl's he's been a part of every single point that Edmonton has scored. So we haven't done a good job there. So, I don't know. I was excited, and I think maybe this will be a good transition into game 4. I was excited after game 3, when your emotions are high, and then we go up 3-0 in game 4. It really seemed that we were turning the table, right? Joe, you even said in your tweet, hey, Edmonton's got to be worried now. We got Fiala back, obviously big jump there. Let's start with that. The energy, not only after watching game 3, but going into game 4, scoring 3 goals. But Russ, talk about the energy in the building. You tweeted out that the energy was electric when Fiala's face got posted up on the Titantron getting ready for warmups.
Oh yeah, fans knew what was going on. The elephant in the room was 22, and whether he was going to come out for warmups. We had heard from Morning Skate that he skated with I believe it was a red contact jersey or whatever the night before. But yeah, as soon as you saw him on the warm up video board, the crowd lit up. Saw him on skating around. They showed him once again, and then you could see him come out, and there was a cheers even on his first shift. This is a player that, if he was healthy, would have more than likely led this team in scoring. So obviously, the fans are going to be excited. And the first period, it reminded me, Randy. Remember that game you came out and saw at St. Louis? It's the same thing.
Yeah, Fiala's
return. It was he had in that game he returned, had a primary assist on the first goal, seconds into the game. And sure enough, he almost had a primary assist on a feed to Iafallo just seconds into the game, with a beautiful pass. And then sure enough gets the primary with the pass off the pad to Velarde. The first 3 goals, the crowd was jumping. It's just, I don't know. It's just, I had that feeling in the back of my mind. We had seen this story before. They did it in Carolina. They scored 5 goals at home to Arizona. We knew what happened then. They eventually won that game, and then also the game in St. Louis. And it's just, man, that second period, I just knew they couldn't stop. You can't let up against this Oilers team, because while they've played and won games close, and they've shown the capability to do that, win these close 2-1, 3-1 games. When you give them an opportunity to just let the floodgates open, hey, Woodcroft's going to give you no reins. To just let the horses run wild, and that's sure enough what they did. And if I could look back to any play that was a turnaround for the game 4, it's the Edler penalty. totally killed momentum. I mean, you're putting the best power play on the ice, and it's like I just knew it's like if this team scores right here, their total confidence is going to change, momentum's going to change, and that's sure enough what happened. I mean, they just couldn't come back from that. I mean, the second period was what it was. It was horrible, and then I don't know, it just kind of was hard. But I mean, I'll let Joe talk about the rest of it, I guess, and what he saw.
I'm not. I gone back and forth and going back and rewatching for doing the shot contributions. And to Kevin Fiala, by the way, I had him for 7 shot assists at 5-on-5, which was second only to Trevor Moore. He had 10 shot contributions in total at 5-on-5 in his first game back, picking up right where he left off, just being just dominant in that category and creating offense. You know, I didn't. And go back to that tweet for a second, Ren, and it was like, this is the LA Kings that we were used to seeing for a while there. Like front foot, there's if you break out, we're coming right back in. It was just one of those, it was like everything was clicking. It's like, that is what you're looking for. This is how you beat Edmonton. You don't beat Edmonton by kind of playing it safe and quote unquote smart and all. You beat them by playing this way, and they take a 3-0 lead. I really don't think, and I thought it maybe at the time, but after rewatching, like, I genuinely don't think the Kings actually like sat back. I mean, there was, even after the 3-1, it's 3-1, there was a shift by the Deneau line, which was incredible. I think they even cycled through another line that came out, like, and they were in the Edmonton zone. Like, when I look at the shot attempts for the Kings, they had 20 in the first period and 16 in the second. So it's not as if it was they held off and were just kind of playing defense. The problem is they could not stop Edmonton, because Edmonton had 30 shot attempts in that second period. So as much as I want to be critical of the Kings, because they generally they'll get a 2-3 goal lead and they'll sit back and that's generally, statistics show that's just how they play. I don't know that I don't feel like that was actually the case. I actually give a little bit more credit to Edmonton, because they really turned it up a notch or 3, because like I said, it's not as if the Kings were generating much less in terms of offensive potential, offensive chances. It was that Edmonton was creating that much more. So I do give some credit to Edmonton there.
Speaking of credit to Edmonton, everybody on Twitter was laughing about it, but Edmonton goes to Soupy in the second. Ballsy call, considering how he's played this year. I mean, Skinner gives up 3 goals. What did you think about that move, and do you think that has any implication on Game 5?
I thought it was an interesting move, to be honest with you. I don't know who mentioned it, but then I just looked down and I saw Jack Campbell in net to start the second. I was actually surprised, because I mean, I didn't really think a lot of those goals, if any of those goals, were on Skinner. I mean, the Kopitar goal was just him. He was all alone in net. I mean, Desharnais just kind of let Arvidsson go. And then the Velarde goal was just a pass off Pat. I mean, there's really nothing to do there. So it was more or less trying to gain momentum back for his team, and it worked. But, I mean, to be honest with you, if I'm an Edmonton fan, I have no confidence in Jack Campbell. I mean, if I'm, as a Kings fan, I hope they start Jack Campbell going forward. I'd be surprised if they did, because, I mean, this kind of felt like a one-off kind of thing. But who knows? I mean, because the first couple saves he made, I mean, what was the Deneau save?
Yeah,
totally shaky. He looked like he had no idea where the puck was. Just kind of, luckily, he made a save. So, I mean, it was surprising. I mean, he got the win. He made the incredible save in the third period off Arvidsson. In tight, it was a little breakaway. I think Arvidsson didn't really realize how much time he had. But it'll be something to watch for sure going into Game 5. But I believe they'll end up staying with Skinner.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think Woodcroft said that they made the decision after the third goal. It was just a matter of when they make the decision to actually pull him. After the first couple of saves, I was like, this is not going to go well. The Kings are going to be okay here. And I think Edmonton, again, they really poured it on in the second period as much as anything. Skinner was fine. Like, I want him to have the second one, the Arvidsson goal. I'm not going to say it's a weak goal. You hope he makes the save there. But as a Kings fan, I'm really hoping for Jack Campbell to get the start. I agree with Russ wholeheartedly. I don't think he's a good goalie. I think he's somebody that can get rattled pretty easily. So if things don't go well early in game 5, it could be a big problem. So if I'm Edmonton, I do go back to Skinner. I know he hasn't been great this postseason, but I do think he's still their best option.
Yeah, I agree. I think that you're looking at, hey, let's throw a Hail Mary up and see if there's a change of person, gets the identity going and see what's there. And worst case scenario, it's one of those games that happened to us last year in game 2. You know, it's just, hey, this team came out hot. They beat us. We got to win 3 straight. You know, so I think it's interesting just kind of how that changed. But to the point of, hey, Arvidsson had that breakaway. There was a lot of other close plays. I think the Kings could have capitalized a lot better in this game on some not routine, but easier opportunities, especially since the second period was so bad in Edmonton's favor.
So, and to be clear, this was the best game the Kings played in the series, and I don't even think it's very close. Like, they were great in the first, they were great in the second too. The third period. Like, again, that is how you play. That's how you're going to give yourself the best chance against Edmonton. Okay, is to make them play in their own zone. And I know that's a lot of times that's easier said than done. I get that, but this idea that you have to kind of play in this structured shell all the time, you're asking for trouble against Edmonton. And so I was really impressed with how the Kings played the first period, the third period. Overtime was 10 minutes, it is what it is. But I thought the Kings played a good game overall. I thought the Danault line was excellent. Fiala, Velarde is a center, playing center for the full. I thought he did well. That he handled his own. Again, the idea of him and Fiala back into the lineup is what the Kings can create mismatches in the bottom 6. Edmonton's got the advantage in the top 6, almost no matter how they slice it. But the bottom 6 is where the Kings can have an advantage. Now, what I was surprised about with Edmonton, and Russ, Randall, I don't know what you guys think. I don't like when they go to McDavid and Draisaitl together. I think they were dominating, and I guess but they did it so early in the first period. It's not as if they did it after it was 3-0. Like, if then there was a time to do it, perhaps you do it after it's 3-0, shake some things up a little bit. They were doing it pretty early in this game. I didn't understand why. They've controlled the series, the both of them, really. I know McDavid's points haven't quite been there, but you look at all of his expected goals metrics and all that, he's playing fine. And obviously Draisaitl has been excellent. I just didn't see the need for it. And when you put them together, the mismatch isn't quite there on that second line. And I think Danault's line was really, really good for LA. So I didn't like them doing that. I don't think they're better that way, and I'll be curious to see how they go into game 5. I think they're better off split, though.
Yeah, game 5, we could end up seeing McDavid and Draisaitl each play like 40 minutes. I know McDavid played 30 minutes last night in game 4. I mean, you got to run with your best horses, right? I mean, McDavid's obviously one of the best players in the league. I mean, after this series, I could make an argument that Draisaitl is better than him because he's been that good as an all-around player. I mean, you see him on the ice; he's so much more noticeable than 97. I mean, we're talking about 4 games, but the way he's kind of controlled play every time he's on the ice has been insane. But yeah, when they went together really early, I noticed that too. There was probably like 2 or 3 shifts that they had before the Kings even scored the first goal. So, I mean, it'll be something to watch. I know in the second period they kind of let up a little bit, and then when they were down in the third period, they went back to those 2. It was pretty much anytime they had a face-off, it was Bukestad on the ice with McDavid and Draisaitl. Bukestad would win it, he'd come off, and Kane would go right back on for him. So that was their plan, and it ended up working for them with the tying goal, and then in overtime too, which just. I mean, I want to talk about the overtime goal too, because I saw a lot of people harping on Drew Doughty for his play there. And yeah, his gap control could have been a little bit better there, but I mean, that's a shot Korpisalo probably should have.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, it's not like, I mean, I'm not going to say that Korpisalo, 100% like that's a soft save, because I mean, it's a nice goal, but I'm not going to blame Drew Doughty for it either. I mean, it's a long change for him too. It was almost an extended kind of 2-on-1. So I mean, for you to have to step up on a player that far, you're already on top of the circle. To expect a forward coming streaking down the side like that to score from that angle, as a defenseman, I'd let him take that shot 9 times out of 10. So
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, I think I guess you could maybe say it was like you could maybe hope that Doughty maybe could have been a little bit more aggressive, I suppose.
Yeah.
But the Corpusalo's gonna make the save. It went through his arm. It's a bad goal. Let's just call it what it is. He's played great. It was a bad goal, and it's unfortunate that it happened in overtime. It happens again. These things happen. You know, he played a great game in game 2. I didn't love the third goal. These things happen. I'm not going to kill Doughty for it. I mean, and I'm not going to kill Corpusalo. It just is what it is. It was a bad goal at a bad time, and we're on to game 5 though. Like, there's no sense like dwelling over it or anything like that. These things happen. So
you guys aren't going away from Corpusalo, right?
No, God no.
Cal Peterson, game 5.
No, I mean if he, you know, because again, even when I look back at the goals that were scored in this game, I don't know that any of the ones before that. Like, I thought the release that Kane had on the tying goal was. I don't get on Corpusalo for that one. And there was the 2 power play goals. I don't think he ever saw Bouchard's goal. So no, I mean, I thought he was good. He was beaten a few times in the first. I think Edmonton had 3 pipes in the first period. But it was fine. It was just a bad goal. I'm easily going back to Corpusalo in game. That never crossed my mind, to be honest with you. I don't know if I've seen that on people thinking that's never crossed my mind.
Yeah, Nav's like, Brandon, don't even speak that into existence. I'm sorry. I'm not trying not to put that out in the universe there. I cut out for a little bit, so I don't know where the transition went to goalie, but I think they kind of we saw it and they said it on the telecast, like after Arvidsson put that defender in a turnstile, like he played 2 more shifts the rest of the game. And then like some of the forwards didn't play either. I think in the third period and overtime, they were skating like eight forwards and 4 defensemen. It was pretty like they were adding a lot of minutes on everybody. I think you're 100% right with the 3-day layoff. I mean, TBS was saying it like, hey, I'm going to expect McDavid and Draisaitl both to play 30-35 minutes in game 5. So it is what it is. I mean, they're pretty much like they have their sets of wingers and they're rotating McDavid and Draisaitl through all these lines and Bukestad every once in a while. They're kind of just all playing with everybody there. And it's what I would do too. I mean, they are so top heavy, like you mentioned, Joe, and they've gotten a little bit more depth in previous seasons, but you're going to go with the 2 top 5 guys in the game right now. And Draisaitl's playing better than he did last year. He's, healthier and everything like that. And he just can't be stopped at this point. So why not? You have to go to your horses at this point. Cause I know they went earlier than the goals and everything like that, but the first period was, even before the goals, I thought it was tilted in our favor a little bit. Maybe they did it to kind of slow the momentum, turn the tables the other directions and then go back to the normal shakeup. But I mean, you got to assume. I mean, you got to stop both of them, and we got to be better on our team there. And so let's get to that. I think. Go ahead if you want to.
Well, I was just going to say you'd mentioned Darren A at one point when you were talking, Brandon. It's like that's where the bottom 6 can really exploit this Edmund. And again, you only do this if you're on that front foot and you're playing that going to attack rather than kind of play back. You can exploit a guy like Darren A. He's been terrible this series. He's been one of the Kings' best players. He's taken stupid penalties, multiple stupid penalties. He has been bad.
Even Nurse has been bad too. I mean, he pretty much let Matt Roy just walk right up the middle of the ice and score that goal.
I think Nurse is a good defenseman, and I'm pretty sure I'm in the minority there. But I think it's when he gets over his skis a bit and he tries to do a little too much, where the play you're alluding to on Roy's goal, like he's totally unnecessary. He doesn't have to do that. When he's a good player, though. He skates well. He's a good offensive instincts. He's got good offensive mind. He's mean. He can be nasty. Like, so when he does it right, I think he can be a solid defenseman. But when he gets does some things like that where he's awful, Yeah.
Well, it's the thing too, is that's your number one defenseman. You're going to play 25 minutes or 25 minutes a night. I mean, those mistakes are going to be a lot more like under the microscope because you're out there so much. But I mean, yeah, Ekholm. I think people forget like the Ekholm trade was huge for this team, obviously.
Yes.
But then I think people don't look at the Kulak trade last year too. That was a big time trade because I mean I've seen Kulak have a pretty decent series too. You don't really hear his name come up too often, but he just seems solid. And then Bouchard too has kind of turned it up. I mean, he's always been known as this offensive defenseman, but he's been so good. I mean, on the power play, his shot is so ridiculous. He kind of reminds me a little bit of, or not reminds me, but I kind of want like Brent Clark to kind of develop into that type of player because they're both came up with a lot of offensive statistics under their belt from juniors. So if Brent Clark can develop into that Bouchard type role, I think that'd be huge.
And the thing with why I think Edmonton is there's multiple reasons why they're so good in playing 11-7. A, it's because you can get Draisaitl and McDavid on the ice more, but B, it's because you can kind of limit Desharnais. And when you have Philip Broberg, who I just, for the life of me, cannot understand how he's not playing over Philip or Desharnais anyways. But, for the first half of that game, Desharnais had doubled the minutes that Broberg had, and that shifted, like you said, Randon. I think that Desharnais stopped playing at some point late in the second, early third. And so, Broberg's a better defenseman. I mean, so having the 7 helps them on the back end too if they're smart about it and they don't play Desharnais. And eventually they came around to it. But I'll be interested to see what they do with the lineup. I mean, I don't know that they're going to take Desharnais out, but boy, has he been bad. And you're right at Kulak. I mean, Kulak's been kind of steady. I don't know if it's because he's playing next to Desharnais, who's making all the mistakes, so he's looking a little bit better. But he has been. I agree, Russ. He's been okay.
Yeah, I saw Broberg out in the ice in some pretty important situations.
He's a good player.
Yesterday,
Well, they drafted him to be. He's a top 15 pick.
He's a good player, and
another 2019 first round draft pick that was behind Turcotte, but right.
Yeah, so we'll see. I'd be curious to see if they do anything though. If Desharnais comes out, if they go back to 3 lines. I mean, I honestly, I would probably just go 11-7, but you're going to play 11-6.
Yeah, I think they're just going to end up rolling the same way. But I think the big decision was see what they do in net because that'll be something to watch.
So speaking of bad defensemen, our third pair has been atrocious this series. Richard coming in. Richard said, "Who should be the third pair? Edler and Spence, Dursey and Spence, Bjornfoot and Dursey, Bjornfoot and Spence." Let's just talk about how bad the third pair has been, and then we'll get into the Game 5 preview about where we think that should go from there.
Yeah, they've been tough to watch. I mean, this was a pair that we talked about probably would be a problem for LA when Gavrikov was placed alongside Roy, and sure enough, it's been a problem for LA. I mean, Edler Dursey, with Edler, it's just he has no transition to his game right now. He's getting beat with speed. Like I said, that penalty just really cost the Kings the momentum that they had from the first period. And then with Dursey, I don't know. I was actually talking with Andrew Knoll about this in the press box because it's weird because Dursey was actually pretty good last year. And I wonder if it's more because he had more free reign to do kind of whatever he wanted. I mean, there's no doubt he was kind of looked at to be like the number one offensive guy in terms of defense. So mistakes maybe weren't too maybe thought of in his head. Like, hey, I'm going to be out here. Like, if it's okay if I make a mistake, I'm still going to be out on the ice because I'm really all they got, that kind of thing. So for this season or this series, it's like now that he knows he's only getting spot starts, I wonder if he realizes there's more pressure on him to be productive or be like even just a decent defenseman because, man, when those two are on the ice, it just spells doom for the Kings right now. And it just sucks because Kings are just really a 4 defenseman team at the moment. I mean, we saw in overtime. I didn't even know if I saw Edler on the ice in overtime. So it's just tough because this is why at the deadline, I mean, I'll talk about we'll get to the bottom 6 too later, but they should have went for another. There's more opportunity to add to this team because this team had too many holes in it to go for an extended run. I mean, even if they get by the Oilers, this is still going to be a situation where we're going to be talking about in the later rounds too. So it's just unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, this is everybody saw this coming with Edler Dursey. We've talked about it on this show for a year and a half now, or whatever it's been. It just doesn't work. It didn't work last year. It's not working this year. For Dursey specifically, I wonder how much, he's getting used to playing, not used to, but he's got to go. He's played the left side for like 90% of this season, and now he's kind of has to play the right side, be the retrieval guy with Edler. So I do wonder how much of that playing a factor. But I mean, Edler, for me, I mean, just looking quickly too at Money Puck, they're the second worst defensive pair in shot attempts, 29% Corsi. And expected goals, they're the sixth worst at 27.3%. They're dead last in that category if you filter it out by defensemen pairs that have played at least 20 minutes. I mean, it's been really, really bad. So I don't know if I should say I expect a change, but you should hope that there's a change.
I would think they'd bring in Walker for Edler.
But the question is for who? The question is for who?
You put Dursey on the left side, you bring in Walker. Because Edler's it's been tough to watch.
Yeah,
it's been tough.
I agree,
I mean,
Russ.
And even in the penalty kill, like if you say he's been helping the penalty kill, the penalty kill has been terrible.
Yep.
So,
yep.
Oh, wow, the Maple Leafs just won in overtime.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Almost every time that Edler has not played, it's either because of an injury or because it was a back-to-back. I think if he's healthy, he's playing. I agree. I think it should be Dursey left, Walker. I don't know though. I'll be convinced that they take Edler out, that veteran, big presence on the penalty kill. I'm just telling you what I think, that how they look at this. I wouldn't be surprised to see Edler Walker. Or
his size means nothing. He's a statue.
I agree. I agree. I think it should be Dursey Walker.
It's going to be tough too because now the Kings have to steal one in Edmonton. So those matchups, they're going to when they see Edler Dursey on the ice, they're going to put McDavid and Draisaitl right out behind him.
So I wonder here, that it's a great point, and it's something I've been thinking about too. Is like, this is such a pivotal game. This game 5. I mean, it's not the be all end all, but it is such a big game. That do you go with what you know, despite it being horrible? Or do you put Walker, who hasn't played a game now in 2 weeks, and you're going to put him into the series in game 5 on the road? I don't know. I mean, as a coach, you're just going to have to say, listen, you're on the team, you're on the roster. We're going to trust you in the position that we decide to put you in. If that means you're starting game 5 or you're playing game 5 for your first game, so be it. But I wonder how much that comes into play, that they got a guy that just hasn't played all series, and you're going to put him out in a situation potentially.
Velarde hadn't played in a month. They put him right back in.
Well, and it would also be Walker. It would be Walker's first ever playoff game too, which would be tough in Edmonton. But yeah, I mean, but at this moment, I agree with Brandon too. It's just Edler's just not really providing much of anything on the third pair.
I would put Bjornfoot in over him too. I really don't care. You need to get somebody out there.
I wouldn't put Bjornfoot in, but I would.
You'd rather have Edler over Bjornfoot.
Yeah, I would do Edler over Bjornfoot.
Yeah, that's a little
Dursey. Crazy. It's Dursey Walker. The answer is right here. The answer is Dursey
I know
Walker.
I know what the answer is, but in multiple choice, it's anything over Edler.
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely make that argument. I can see that. But,
you could make that case,
but then you're playing. Yeah, if Walker's available, I think he should slot in for Edler, and then you have Dursey Walker on the third pair.
Because I know there's a lot of shouts for Bjornfoot and for Moverari. I don't know. I love Moverari. It's just, we've seen Walker play, and he's played well. It's not as if he's been a bad defenseman for the Kings this year. And we've seen Dursey Walker be good together as a pair. They've played about an hour's worth of minutes this season. Not a huge sample, but it's not nothing. The pair's been good. And I know coming into the series, one of the things that we were tossing back and forth was, well, do they go stick with Dursey Walker because it's been good, or do they go back to Edler Dursey because of the penalty kill? Well, as you point out, Russ, that doesn't matter, especially when he's in the box for one of them. So what's the difference? You might as well shore up the 5-on-5 as absolute best you can and go with Dursey Walker. So hopefully that's the direction, but we'll see.
And not only that, like Drew Doughty isn't a spring chicken. Like I know that he's our best defenseman this year, but like him constantly playing over 30 something minutes is not beneficial for this team. Like he can't continue to do that this whole series. You need some help from, like, they shortened that rotation early. Like, and so he's out there all the time. I just think it's something that it to be said, and that you need them to refresh, because no offense to Drew Doughty or Anze Kopitar, phenomenal players, and they deserve the minutes that they're playing. They're not in the prime of their career like McDavid and Draisaitl. And I think if we get into that, hey, our best players play as much as your best players, game 5, where Edmonton is probably going to roll out 35 minutes for both those guys, I believe we lose that matchup. We need to get help from our depth, not only in the bottom 6, but from our defensemen to just keep a little bit more legs fresh, because by all accounts, this game's going to go to overtime again. So, I don't understand, the need to do that. I guess I do understand, because Edler's been so bad. But if you get some help in that bottom pair, then you won't need to do that, and you'll have him a little bit more fresher going into overtime, I guess. I don't know. Maybe that doesn't make sense to anybody else, but it makes sense to me.
Well, while we're on this topic of the defense too, and I think it's because he's the new guy that Gavrikov gets a ton of the praise. And hey, he's playing great. This is not to take away from Gavrikov. It's to, like, Matt Roy is just doing it again for the Kings. And
so good.
That pair has been so good. And Matt Roy forget about the goal that he scored. It's just like he is just such a solid defenseman again, and he just never gets talked about, extremely under the radar. So this isn't a shade on anybody, other than just, I think Roy keeps not getting mentioned in these conversations about the D, and he's equally as important as
there's a reason he's not getting mentioned, because he's not making any mistakes. The only time we're talking about it is when he's scoring goals.
Let me ask you this, and this is maybe a totally separate topic for a different day, but like the thing with Roy and Gavrikov is they're very similar, I think, in that they like play kind of within themselves. They'll jump when they see an opportunity. They're not necessarily all that comfortable, I would say, with the puck. They're not great with the puck per se in terms of distribution and making plays with the puck. They're just really safe. And I think you just said, like, I don't know that I've seen either of them make like a glaring giveaway or a glaring mistake. And I think part of me is like, okay, that's good. But on the other hand, it's just like, there's that to me where I want to just go.
Yeah.
It's give me the Jordan Spence who's going to make a mistake, but man, it's going to be exciting. And Brant Clark is going to make a shit ton of mistakes next year, and Kings fans are going to want to hang him. But
it's
going to happen. Dursey, like Doughty when he was younger, like, I don't know. To me, I like the ceiling of those guys. I think the safer guys are great to have if you've got a couple of them sprinkled into your lineup. But again, totally separate conversation. I think the Kings have many of the safer ones right now.
I think that's why Dursey and Roy worked out so well, because you had Roy to kind of help out with all of Dursey's Durseyisms that he would have throughout the season.
Would you guys use that, like your thought process on the Oilers being, split up Draisaitl McDavid? Would you split up Gavrikov and Roy to make the entire D-core better and go Dursey, Roy, and Walker, Gavrikov? Yeah,
but they won't do it. I mean, again, people think this is a knock on Gavrikov. It's not. It's we've seen Dursey and Roy play well together, and I think we're seeing Roy is just never getting talked about yet. He could be he's just as important, and we're seeing just how bad that bottom pair is. That if you shored that up with a Gavrikov Walker, and then you had Dursey Roy, I mean, that's really good. But yeah, they won't. But again, you could potentially accomplish the same thing with Dursey Walker too, right? So I don't
I'm
know.
very excited to see how this defense shakes up next season. It's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah.
Well, I know a lot of people tonight were hoping that Barry would lose, so Brant Clark would make his appearance in Edmonton. A little side note: did you guys see that little tuffle? Him getting into
No.
it with that
Yeah,
fan.
he's getting into it with a fan. I saw that.
So
He's a
mid-game,
really very emotional kid. Very emotional. He's gonna have to learn to. It's funny because I mean, I don't know. Dowdy obviously never did anything like that, but it's almost the same kind of like energetic, like very charismatic type of player. I mean, that was one of the first things I noticed about Clark when I watched him at the rookie camp. Is just constantly talking on the ice. You close your eyes and the only player you hear, you just know when Brant Clark's out there because you just hear his voice, and that's what you want to see from a superstar. So
I think when he gets older, he'll learn about that. But it's like I like the moxie, like I like
Mhm.
that kind of stuff, and it's like
yeah,
him scoring game-winning goals and blowing kisses to fans and being energetic and stuff like that. Like I like that. But Joe, so like this fan was in the first row right by the glass, and they're getting the crap beat out of him. It's like 6-2 or whatever in the game. The fans just chirping Clark, "You're the captain," all this kind of stuff. Like you can't tell what he's saying, but he's just in like up against the glass, just yelling at this kid through. Which obviously, being an adult, man, like you're yelling at a 19-year-old.
yeah, you're yelling at what are you doing?
But Clark's just giving it back to him, like F-bombs and all this kind of stuff. And he's like, I think you see him. It's like, if this glass wasn't here, would you be talking as much as you are now? And so Clark reaches to the top of the glass and tries to starts to climb the glass to go over into the stands after this guy. And I don't know if it's a coach or another player just grabs him by the back of the jersey and pulls him down, and then he moves down the bench or whatever. It was great. I loved it. I mean, obviously you can't have that, but I think it's a learnable moment for him. But I think
I'd rather have
great.
that and try to rein that in than try to pull something out of somebody. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
try
exactly.
to pull that emotion out of somebody.
And I don't know which interview it was, but they said you look at Dowdy when he was younger, it was just so emotional all the time on the ice. You knew exactly what was going on. And as he's gotten older, he's kind of harnessed that energy a little bit. I think it's probably just going to be the same for Clark. But man, that you just love it. He scores, you blowing kisses at people. He's doing sellies all the time, trying Michigan goals. This kid's going to be electric. And
I mean, talk about the best mentor he could have on the Kings.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're talking about Dowdy, I mean, they're going to be playing together for the next few years. It's going to be perfect relationship to build off of.
Well, let's see. Let's get into this next part here, and then we'll do a little DraftKings after that. Bottom six, right? Or actually just bottom three for the Kings was pretty much non-existent. They didn't see the ice for most of the third period. Can't seem to really get a shakeout there. Let's talk about what we've seen so far. Does Lizotte come back and be 3C, or does he go back to 4C with Velarde playing well? What are you guys seeing there, and maybe something into the future?
If Lizotte comes back for me, I'd slot him at the fourth center's position because I mean, it sucks because Kupari's been so disappointing for me this series. I was hoping for a little bit more from him, and he's just been non-existent on the ice. I mean that entire line, and yeah, there's been a little bit injuries that they're dealing with, but I mean even yesterday when you're able to slot Grundstrom back down to the fourth line, and you have Kupari and Anderson Dolan, I would have expected just a little bit more, and then they just were hemmed in almost every time they were on the ice together, and This is why I go back to the trade deadline I talked about earlier. Rob Blake had an opportunity here to address this situation. He had a chance with the salary that was opened up from the Jonathan Quick deal to maybe bring in a player like a Bukestad or Nick Bonino to help out with the bottom six, maybe help out with the face-off draws, help out with the penalty kill. I mean, that's what the Oilers did. And look at what Bukestad's been able to do for them. Yeah. He's dominating in the face-off circle, dominating to the point where they're just putting him out there to take a face-off, win it, and then get off the ice. I mean, and Bukestad was traded for a third-round pick and a no-name prospect. I mean, Rob Blake easily could have made that deal. It would have helped out. We wouldn't even be talking about this, and it would have addressed the situation the Kings are in right now. But instead, we're talking about trying to fix holes where the Kings haven't really nowhere to turn to. You're going to put in McEwen. He's not really helping out. You're going to put in Kaliev. He's not really helping out in the 5-on-5. So this is just the situation that the Kings are in right now. And I don't know. Maybe you see if Alex Turcotte is healthy, try to get him in there at this point. But I mean, I don't really trust anybody on the fourth line at the moment unless they're able to get Lizotte back. You slot him in that fourth line, maybe bring a little bit of cohesiveness, help him out a little bit. But right now, without him, I mean, it's just they're a 9-forward team at the moment.
Yeah, I remain a little hesitant about having Velarde lock in as that third center. I mean, he's had a breakout season as a winger, and I still feel a little nervous about the responsibility, but I'm probably overrating that a little bit. And he obviously had a really good game the other day. That line was great, and you just can't have a fourth line be this bad. Zeros across the board in anything: shot attempts, expected goals, scoring chances, zeros. They had 9 shot attempts. It was just a terrible. You can't have it. They played 3 minutes as a line together because it just gets to a point where you can't play them. So I think I agree, Russ. I think what I would do is have Lizotte in the middle. I would probably kill with Grundstrom and then keep Kupari on the wing. I think I'd move Kupari over to the wing and play with it that way. I mean, I guess you could make the case that with playing in the fourth line with Lizotte as the center, you could maybe make the case for Kaliev to come back in and give that a shot. I don't know that we may have not seen Kaliev for a while here. This wouldn't be surprised if I don't see the rest of the series. But
he might have played his last game as a King.
It's I've thought about that. But
trade bait.
I do think that it depends on Lizotte. Like if Lizotte comes back, then yeah, I think I go Lizotte, Grundstrom, Kupari, or again, you can talk me into Kaliev playing next to Lizotte because again, Lizotte in the right matchup we've seen him drive play. He's been somebody who's been one of the better shot assist guys on the team. The tricky part is with Edmonton going 11-7 that they don't have a true quote unquote fourth line. You might have McDavid or Draisaitl stuck out there against somebody like Lizotte too in that situation. So we'll see. Obviously, without Lizotte though, I mean I think it is what it is. What are you going to do? This is the best that they can put out there is what they did, and that's a little scary. But I mean, barring I don't know, you're not going to move Iafallo down to help out the line, quote unquote, and maybe swap Iafallo Grundstrom, but I think that might be getting a little too cute. It could be a short bench pretty quick in Game 5.
Yeah, it's tough. I think it's a situation they could have and should have procured at the trade deadline, but we are there, and I don't think there's a line hold. I mean, we talked about some Hail Marys, during this game or this series with Laferriere. Is that an option? I mean, Lizotte, Laferriere, and Grundstrom. Just give the kid a shot. I know that would be a steep ask his first game, playing in Edmonton on the road, which doesn't seem anything that T-Mac would even consider. But I mean, we're talking hypotheticals here. The team has been, like you said, zeros across the board. It was data incomplete, data error, right? So you can't get worse than nothing. And so, I mean, at that time, where is the lack of incentive? I guess is the wrong way to put it. But where there's really nothing you can lose by shaking some things up in a drastic nature.
And that's what it is, because we talk about how coaches, by nature, a lot of coaches in the NHL are risk averse, and they're going to generally err on the safer option, which for 4 games has been really bad on that fourth line. So to your point, Randon, what's the difference if you put in a guy like Laferriere? Now, again, I don't think that's going to happen. But I
mean, zeros across the board. I could have skated up and gave you that.
Your point is fair. Your point is fair because you've tried Kaliev, ain't working. Tried McEwen, didn't work. This fourth line yesterday, again, zeros across the board. I mean, at what point do you try to make something a bit of a drastic move? If there was ever a time, you would think it's now, because it's not as if you can count on them to be a defensive line. Right, or at least a line that's going to be. They're not doing that either.
Give me Lazat, Turcotte, and LaFerriere out there. Let's do it. Let's.
There we go. Now we're talking.
Yeah, if you thought Edler was bad, watch Randon McMahon on the ice. Talk about a turnstile. Let's get to our sponsor, DraftKings, before we keep going into Game 5 here. DraftKings, it's NBA playoff time. That means big hoops actions for DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Get in on the excitement for every game. With the touch of a button, new customers can make a $5 pregame moneyline bet and score $150 in bonus bets if their team wins. Plus, everyone can score a no-sweat same-game parlay every day during the NBA playoffs. Open DraftKings Sportsbook app now, opt in, and place a same-game parlay on any NBA team. If it doesn't get hit, you'll get a bonus of up to $10. So if you want to go Lakers and LeBron, or you want to go Warriors and Steph Curry, bet it in, get the parlays going, you can do just that. Download the app now and sign up with code THPN. New customers can bet up to $5 pregame money line and bet and score $150 in bonus bets if their team wins, only at DraftKings with code THPN.
Kings are plus 190, Randon, at DraftKings tomorrow. Wouldn't be surprised to see that get to plus 200. In Game 2, that closed plus 210 at DraftKings. So
if you want to bet the Kings and the fourth line to get a goal, you'd probably be at plus 15,000, and that would be a pretty good payday for $100.
Yeah, weren't we talking about what McEwen's
it was
anytime goal was?
Yeah, it was plus 650, I think it was.
I was like, geez, that's actually really low. That's
horrible.
That's
yeah,
horrible value.
Yeah, horrible value.
Yeah.
Considering he hasn't scored one, that's kind of funny. All right, let's get into the mustache marvel. Game 4, his return. Let's talk about what maybe we see from that third line here. With Velarde and Iafallo. Obviously, Iafallo has been great. Fiala had a lot of scoring chances, second most on the team. Do we see that line take another step in the next game? You know, usually it takes one game to shake off the rust. Velarde said, "Hey, first period, it was too fast for me out there. I had to really adapt to what was going on." Fiala seemed fine, but then it maybe seemed second period the team kind of backed off a little bit. What did you guys see from that line? Does that line stay the same if Lazat comes back for you? I know we kind of touched on it a little bit. And going forward, what do they need to do to capitalize on the mismatches?
Well, what I saw from Fiala is you can tell he's not 100%. You're not really seeing the full complement of his skill set as what we saw throughout the regular season, those in tight turns. I mean, obviously the hockey IQ, his awareness on the ice is still there. I mean, that's not something that'll go away from injury, but you're not really seeing that speed that we saw from him. Maybe he'll come back. I mean, it was his first game. He's kind of adapting. So he ended up with 2 points in the first period. So it'll definitely help on the power play. That's for sure. So, I mean, that line, I mean, Fiala and Velarde seems to work really well. And Iafallo helps out there. But, I mean, we talked about maybe making some changes to the third pair, maybe making some changes to the fourth line. But for me, I think there's one change that the Kings should look at making. And that's moving Iafallo up to the first line with Quentin to change out with Quentin Byfield. And the only reason I say that is because Draisaitl is just dominating this game. He's every game that's been played so far, all 4 games, it's been Draisaitl on the ice. He's dominating shift after shift after shift. And Kopitar seems to be the matchup that they're okay with, that the Kings are okay with, that they're just on the ice together. And this isn't really a knock on what I'm seeing from Byfield, because I think Byfield's been excellent this series. I think he's playing great. The moment's never been too big for him. He's only 20 years old. It is what it is. But I believe if you're able to put Iafallo there in that spot, who I don't think any of us would argue is probably the Kings' best defensive winger, I think that gives the Kings a little bit better chance to maybe dominate those shifts, those matchups with Kopitar and Kempe. I know we've seen those 3 be together at times, and it hasn't really worked out. But I think with Kempe's kind of breakout into this offensive producer, you have Iafallo, who's always really solid in his own end. I think that'll really help. And then maybe you unlock a little bit more offense out of Byfield, placing him with Velarde and Fiala, and you get like this wild card line that you can just match up and just put him out there whenever McDavid and Draisaitl aren't there. I mean, then maybe we've seen kind of those Velarde and Fiala just kind of score. I mean, Velarde has 3 points since he's returned. And then Fiala, obviously, with the 2 points in his return. So I think that would be a change that I'd look at making just to help out with the matchups with Draisaitl. And then you get a little bit more offense. Maybe help out Byfield in his offensive production.
Is that Byfield at wing or is that Byfield at center?
Byfield at wing. I'd put Byfield at wing. Keep Velarde. Yeah, you have two centers there on the third line too to help out with faceoffs, and we've even seen Iafallo help out with faceoffs too in certain occasions. So he can help out on the first line.
You know, it's funny, kind of along those lines when I was looking at some numbers and stuff before the series, but knowing Velarde was injured, I just kind of brushed it aside. But I forget, it was a decent of this forwards this season. I mean, Velarde's played against McDavid as much as anybody, really. He had the best. I think he was the best forward in terms of not holding, but in terms of on ice numbers, the expected goals against. Velarde was excellent against McDavid, and I know you said Iafallo, but I was kind of along the same lines of like, I wonder if he was healthy, would they move him? Would they swap the wings? Would they swap him with Byfield? You know, keep Lizotte, Byfield, and and Iafallo. So same idea, Russ. I don't hate it. But yeah, I get the logic, and I don't think that it's something that is totally like out of left field or anything. We've seen Iafallo up with Kopitar before. Obviously, I don't think he's going to do much less offensively than Byfield has. Again, I agree. I don't think Byfield has been bad by any means, but at some point, like there's just no production really, or limited production on the top line. And I know you want to do a job as best as you can on McDavid and or Draisaitl, but also as a top line player and a top line, you have to try to find some sort of production there. So maybe that's a way to try to do it, because it seems like the Danault line, maybe it was just this last game. I'd have to look back now. I'm drawing a blank on the prior games, but boy, were they buzzing this last game. The Danault line was. So yeah, I wouldn't touch that. So I can see that. I think there's something to that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel more comfortable playing Iafallo 19 minutes a night than I do playing Byfield 19 minutes a night. So you get Byfield to the third line, give him 15 minutes with Velarde and Fiala. I mean,
it's a fun line.
It's a really fun line. I mean, we've seen that's some really good offense. I mean, you have a lot of size there with Velarde and Byfield too. So, I mean, I think it'll work. I mean, it gives Byfield better opportunities, maybe a little less pressure. And like I said, it's nothing against his play because I think he's been fantastic. But I think it'll just help out the defensive matchup against Draisaitl, who's just dominating. I mean, he's been, if not the best player in the playoffs so far in this season. So, I mean, it's something that the Kings are going to have to watch. I mean, with the last change now in Edmonton, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to it. I like the Velarde idea as well. I mean, shaking things up, and
it made more sense when Lizotte was healthy, obviously, and they had good center. But
I mean, not that Byfield hasn't been taking faceoffs. I mean, Byfield at 3C. I mean, I know it's not something that maybe we even thought Velarde would do, but it's a change that might be necessary. Yeah, I think that's an interesting idea. It's amazing when you look at the bottom and you're like, hey, maybe it needs to come from the top. Maybe we need to pull it down and move it around. That's interesting, Russ. I like it. I got to marinate it on a little bit more, but I think I might like that idea going forward.
I do wonder too if they do end up going back to Lizotte, Fiala, and Velarde on the third, or what was it? Was Fiala was playing the second line, right? So it was Lizotte, Velarde.
This whole lineup, I don't know if they've been to like everybody.
That's right. We haven't seen all the forwards line because I've heard people say maybe we should bump Trevor Moore down to the fourth line in certain spots. But yeah, the nice line has been excellent. They've probably been the best line for the Kings. 5-on-5.
I'm gonna be honest with you, like. I know Trevor Moore. He scored the overtime goal, but like he leads the team right now in shot contributions per 60. He's pouring things at the net, and that line in general was the best.
I think Victor Arvidsson might be our most consistent player from game to
game.
Oh,
he's been by far the best Kings best player.
He's been really good.
Fantastic.
That line I've liked it. Just looking briefly here, Russ, at the natural stat trick, the Kopitar matchup. So he's played 46 minutes against Leon Draisaitl, which is 23 more minutes than he's played against McDavid. So obviously, to your point, he's certainly up against Draisaitl, and it's a 38% expected goals.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, compared to a 63% expected goals against McDavid, or whatever that's worth. So Draisaitl is definitely getting the better right now of Kopitar.
Well, the two players that lead, or the two forwards, I would say, that lead the Kings in relative expected goals, which is your on ice expected goals versus your off ice expected goals, is Lizotte and IFL. So you saw what happens when you lost your best defensive forward in Lizotte, and if IFL is your second best defensive forward, put him against the best player in the series, make it happen.
I just think like when Edmonton gets into these grooves, I think Lizotte is just so helpful because he never gives up. Like it's not like I think I see it a lot of time, and I know it's necessary, but it drives me absolutely insane where it's like the Kings are just so wiped after a shift, they just dump it in and then change, and it's like I understand like you're wiped, you're just trying to get the puck out because you need to make a change, but I'd like to see somebody carry the puck out or make a pass instead of just dumping it out. Joe, I mean, you're a coach. Maybe, I don't know, there's something about that, but like, it just seems like you just repeat the cycle of giving Edmonton the puck back.
The King, well, again, a lot of this is why the Kings, what worked so well in the first period is they didn't do that. They weren't in their zone. They were playing in the offensive zone. Now, the way the Kings play, and this is why I go back to what I was kind of alluding to earlier with the defensemen. It's like, yeah, Gavrikov and Roy, they don't make any mistakes, but they also don't make any plays, like in terms of getting pucks to their forwards. That's a little harsh. I think you know what I mean. Like they're not the tape to tape. They're not going to beat a guy. They're not going to skate the puck out of the zone. They're not. That's just not. They're going to get it. They're going to go off the glass. They're going to get it into the neutral zone, and they're going to let Trevor Moore skate into it. They're going to let Victor Arvidsson fly into it. They're going to let Adrian Kempe fly into it, right? Because that's how the Kings are going to play. And they're going to pick it up. They're going to try to get a chance off the rush. Like that's how they are built right now. So Randon, when you're spending an entire shift in your own zone, and you get your D-men and you chip it out into the neutral zone, there's nothing in the tank. There's absolutely the best you can do is hope that you got a guy that has enough in the tank to skate it in, rag the puck a little bit, wait for some help and a line change, and then you get off. But when you're defending for 25, 35, 45 seconds and you finally get the puck out, yeah, you're 100% right. There's just no gas to go the other way. So that's what makes it tricky. And that's why I say, and I know it's easier said than done against Edmonton, but you've got to try to beat them in their zone, because if you play this sit back, you're never going to play enough offense to beat them. So that's where I come from with that. You're right. So that's again, to bring it back around, it's just that's how they're built, right? That's how the Kings today are built. We've talked about a lot of skill coming up in the defense group with Spence. Clark is coming. Durzi's now getting he's not quite the same, obviously, as Clark and Spence, but like you've got some skillful guys that are coming. Where and how do they slot in and fit into this current makeup of the team? Because they are very, very different type of players than what the Kings currently work with.
But Durzi has made some tape-to-tape passes across multiple lines.
He's capable. No,
yeah.
Durzi's capable. He's not like the fluid skater per se that Jordan Spence is, but he's more than capable. But people, it's a little risky, you know. And again, that's why I think people adore this Gavrikov Roy pairing. And listen, they've been great. Like they're doing that. There's a me too. Like to a point, it's just. I prefer the guy. I want to get up and go a little bit. I'll take a couple of mistakes. I'll take a little bit more risk if it means we're going to go. You know, we're going to actually try to make a play and make something happen. And because you spend less time in your zone if you have defensemen that are mobile, that are good with the puck, that can make some plays in tight spaces. They're not afraid of a forecheck. They can spin off a play and go D to D or hit the center or make a play out of the zone. It's just not how the Kings are built right now. More than one area.
When you're trying to counterpunch, which I think we need to be good at, like you are reacting to something else. You're not taking it to another person, and I think they need to do that better.
You know, and the Kings, to their credit, they are one of the better possession teams in the NHL. They're one of the better shot suppression teams in the NHL.
You wouldn't know it.
Well, this is why this matchup was so bad. I know everybody says, "Oh, we're the best team suited to play against Edmonton." Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's a good matchup. Yes, they probably are the best team suited to play Edmonton, but it's still Edmonton, and they are still a better team. So that doesn't make it a good matchup. That's why I think I am pretty optimistic if they can get past Edmonton. Boy, do they got a shot to make a run through the West. There's no question in my mind. So it's just this happens to be the toughest matchup.
Doesn't it feel like these might be? I mean, we might be biased a little bit here. I'm not going to lie, but doesn't it feel like these are the two best teams in the West?
It's not even us though. Like if you listen to the Athletic and like their playoff predictions, the dark horse to come out of the West was the LA Kings, and most people wrote, most of them said, hey, like we believe Edmonton's the best team in the West, but if the LA Kings get past Edmonton, it's like it's their division to win. Or
I was thinking about that too, and I'm watching the Jets and the Golden Knights. I've been watching all these other playoff series, and I just think like, man, like the Oilers, like if the Kings can somehow win this series, none of these teams scare me. I mean, we've seen the Kings play up with the Avalanche, beat the Jets, beat the Wild. I mean, none of these teams scare me. So if they can figure out a way to steal one of these games in Edmonton, and I mean. It's wild that there's a 3-day break. I mean, if they're able to win tomorrow and tonight, if you're listening today and come back with a 3-day break, maybe you get Lazat back at home. Boy, that would be huge for this team.
You're talking about a team in LA who's been a top 5 teams in terms of anything against, whether it's Corsi against, expected goals against, shot attempts against, scoring chances against. Like they've been consistently one of the better teams in the league at that this season. They are by a mile dead last in these categories in playoffs. It's Edmonton. Like they're that freaking good. So that's why, like if they can find their way past these guys, they've got a legit shot. They've got a shot.
Which is why yesterday was so infuriating.
Sure.
Like if you go up 3-1, that's
so
no,
here's
it's not
the
a
thing.
gimme there.
And you're right. You're right.
And I'm not panicking like, oh, this series is over. I'm just saying, like, you got to capitalize on opportunities.
But Edmonton can say the exact same thing. They blew a 2-goal lead in game 1. They should have won game 3.
But I'm not an Edmonton fan.
I know
Joe.
that. I'm just saying.
No, it's wild. Yeah, it's wild. I totally get what Joe's thinking. Like, it's wild to think like this series could be 3-0 on either way at this point. That's how close this series has been. Every game, like I mentioned earlier, has been essentially 1-goal games.
The games, the scores have been close. The first 3 games really weren't close. Like Edmonton, the fact that Edmonton wasn't winning this series, whether it's 2-1 or 3-0 after those 3 games, again, it is. The article I wrote was like this: the only reason the Kings are where they are, Korpisalo was standing on his head, and Edmonton just continued to shoot themselves in the foot, blowing leads, multiple goal leads, and taking stupid penalties. If Edmonton wasn't parading to the box in just moronic fashion, then they could easily be up 3-0 in this series. So yes, I know it's we blew the 3-0 lead and they had the lead and this. They had another lead in the third period. Edmonton's been blowing leads all series. They could say the same thing. Yep. So it is what it is. It's what makes it a fun series.
That's why this is the most exciting series in playoffs right now.
And it's funny that it's not only us saying it's TBS, TNT. They're like, oh, this is the cherry on top. Like this has been the greatest. It's like no offense to what we've been watching all day. And
dude, I saw ESPN talking about this series today on Around the Horn and Pardon the Interruption. I mean, Around the Horn, they called Jack Campbell John Campbell, but they're making progress. It's baby steps there. It's baby steps.
Well, ESPN's announcing's been horrible, so I can only imagine their other shows when it comes to hockey. Offense intended. I just think it's just interesting. It's just right there, man. It's just it was just right there, and like,
yep,
you think like, hey, could we just have a game where we just stomp on their throats and it's 5-1? Like, couldn't we have one of those games?
Not gonna happen.
Like, yeah,
not gonna happen in this series.
I've been waiting for it to happen the other way, right?
And then McClellan talked about that at the press conferences. I mean, these teams are much closer than everybody thought. I mean, even you look back to last year, what games were 6-0 in game 2 and 8-2 in game 3. I mean, now we're at 3 overtimes in 4 games. These games are so much closer. I mean, it really could go like people are saying the series is over. If you're like, there's probably far from over. I mean, the Kings have done this before. This happened last year where they win Game 5 and stole one there. So I mean,
yeah, and that's the momentum between games doesn't exist, because if that was the case, how would the Kings not won the series last year? They won Game 5 in Edmonton. They go home to LA. Of course, you're going to win the game. No, it means nothing. Like I joked about it before, but Daryl Sutter said it absolute best. It's park and ride. The game's over. It couldn't mean less. It could mean less. You are getting on a plane, flying to a new city. You're in a hotel. The game, it means nothing. It's a totally new day, totally new game. You go play that game and you win that day, and that's all it comes down to. And it has no effect on the following game. I mean, unless there's somebody gets hurt, obviously, or something like that. But there's no effect really on the next game. So you don't carry things over. Momentum within a game is ebbs and flows. It's crazy, like, and you can feel it between games. I don't buy any of it.
Well, I'm just going to sulk a little bit longer until tomorrow.
That's okay.
Well, I just think it's interesting, man. It's interesting. But I think the positives, obviously, Fiala is going to be back for his second game. A little bit more of the rush shaken off. Maybe his lack of that burst and speed that we've seen all season is because of that just rust. His legs needed to get, underneath him. Maybe we see that. Hey, even the 3-day break will be good for Fiala to kind of rest up after the 2 games here. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see what's going on. Korpisalo has been fantastic, and he's really given us a chance there. And if this team is like Joe tweeted out before the second period, we're seeing the full Kings team. I mean, they can beat everybody. They can beat everybody. No, I'm serious though. That didn't age well. It didn't age well for that game, but it's something along the lines where
if they play like that,
we've seen the pinnacle, and I truly believe that the forward group for the Kings is deeper when you have Fiala and Velarde on the third line, and if you get Lazat back, so it's like if we can get that Kings team that just rolls lines, and puts them on their feet, you're not beating us. So. Game 5 is probably going to be the most important game of this series, like Shankmaster said. But hey, we won Game 5 last year and we lost 2. So even after that, it's not over by miles. So hey, 2 best teams are playing it out and knocking it out in the first round. Heavyweights are going at it. Punches are being thrown, sometimes figuratively, sometimes literally, on the ice. But, man, it's been good, and we're going to be covering it here at Hockey Royalty. Thank you, everybody, for coming in the chat. As always, you can find all of our articles at hockeyroyalty.com. Coming out daily there. Follow us at hockey_royalty, at Random Commando, at NHL Russell, at JW Paterino. And if you want any of your rain news, follow at Kopitar for HOF. We will be having a season-ending rain show probably this week, so keep an eye out for that to get the season recap there. You guys are awesome in the chat. Richard, Shakemaster, Nav, everybody. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. For always coming in here and making the chat a spicy. And as always on this podcast, go Kings go.